Plants and Animals are a Montreal-based indie rock trio that began playing together as kids. Touring arduously for about 5 years after their proper full-length debut in 2008, they pretty much made their records on the go until 2013, so the band's decision to be slow, deliberate, and thorough on their latest offering, Waltzed In From the Rumbling, represents a major change of pace. Finally sleeping in their own beds while recording, the band assembled the album over the course of 9 seasons. It's a return to their origins, but it also pushes audaciously forward. University of Canberra Vice-Chancellor Roger Dean also says international students are required to sit an English test before being admitted to nearly all Australian universities. There are, of course, intercultural difficulties as well as language difficulties, he said. There are, of course, also many Australian students who don't speak such fantastically good English either. So we're trying to push the standard even higher than present, but it's a very useful one already. Ms. Bishop says Australia's university system has high standards. I've seen no evidence to suggest that students are not able to complete their courses because they're failing in English yet they're being passed by the universities, she said. I've not seen any evidence to back that up. International education is one of our largest exports, it's our 4th largest export, and it's in the interest of our universities to maintain very high standards because their reputation is at stake.
Richard Morris, of the School of Accounting at the University of NSW, which requires an entrance score in the top 5% of students, says attendance has been a problem since the late 1990s. Sometimes in the lectures we've only got about 1/3 of students enrolled attending, he said. It definitely is a problem. If you don't turn up to class, you're missing out on the whole richness of the experience. You don't think a whole lot, you don't engage in debates with other students, or with your teachers. It is not all gloom, said Professor John Dern, a pro-vice-chancellor at the University of Canberra, who said the internet was transforming the way students access and use information. It is strange that despite all the evidence as to their ineffectiveness, traditional lectures seem to persist in our universities.
DNA barcoding was invented by Paul Hebert of the University of Guelph, in Ontario, Canada, in 2003. His idea was to generate a unique identification tag for each species based on a short stretch of DNA. Separating species would then be a simple task of sequencing this tiny bit of DNA. Dr. Hebert proposed part of a gene called cytochrome C oxidase I, CO1, as suitable to the task. All animals have it. It seems to vary enough, but not too much, to act as a reliable marker. And it is easily extracted, because it is one of a handful of genes found outside the cell nucleus, in structures called mitochondria. Barcoding has taken off rapidly since Dr. Hebert invented it. When the idea was proposed, it was expected to be a boon to taxonomists trying to name the world's millions of species. It has, however, proved to have a far wider range of uses than the merely academic, most promisingly in the realm of public health.
Mintel Consumer Intelligence estimates the 2002 market for vegetarian foods, those that directly replace meat or other animal products, to be $1.5 billion. Note that this excludes traditional vegetarian foods such as produce, pasta, and rice. Mintel forecasts the market to nearly double by 2006 to $2.8 billion, with the highest growth coming from soy milk, especially refrigerated brands. The Food and Drug Administration's 1999 decision to allow manufacturers to include heart-healthy claims on foods that deliver at least 6.25 grams of soy protein per serving and are also low in saturated fat and cholesterol has spurred tremendous interest in soy milk and other soy foods. A representative of manufacturer Food Tech International, Veggie Patch brand, reported that from 1998 to 1999, the percentage of consumers willing to try soy products jumped from 32% to 67%. Beliefs about soy's effectiveness in reducing the symptoms of menopause also attracted new consumers. In the fast-changing world of modern healthcare, the job of a doctor is more and more like the job of chief executive. The people who run hospitals and physicians' practices don't just need to know medicine. They must also be able to balance budgets, motivate a large and diverse staff, and make difficult marketing and legal decisions. The focus in medical school is to train good doctors, but part of being a good doctor is being a good manager. Says Fawaz Siddiqui, a neurosurgical resident at the London Health Sciences Centre in Canada. It's having a core understanding of how to work within the context of an organization. The desire to be a good manager is precisely the reason Dr. Siddiqui, who aspires one day to run a hospital, decided to go back to school. This past autumn he enrolled in a health sector MBA program at the Ivey School of Business at the University of Western Ontario.
By the Bronze Age, drinking vessels were being made of sheet metal, primarily bronze or gold. However, the peak of feasting, and in particular, of the political type of feast, came in the late Hallstatt period, about 600 to 450 BC, soon after the foundation of the Greek colony of Massalia, Marseille, at the mouth of the Rhine. From that date on, the blood of the grape began to make its way north and east along major river systems together with imported metal and ceramic drinking vessels from the Greek world. Wine was thus added to the list of mood-altering beverages, such as mead and ale, available to establish social networks in Iron Age Europe. Attic pottery fragments found at hill forts such as Huenberg in Germany, and luxury goods such as the monumental 5th century Greek bronze crater, or wine mixing vessel, found at Vix in Burgundy supply archaeological evidence of this interaction. Organic containers such as leather or wooden wine barrels may also have traveled north into Europe but have not survived. But early on, there wasn't a burgeoning business, there weren't houses in New York, Palm Beach, Flour, or the south of France. It is said that at one point there was one person to answer the telephones who changed her voice to become the shipping or billing department as needed. You more or less know the Estée Lauder story because it's a chapter from the Book of American Business Folklore. In short, Josephine Esther Mentzer, daughter of immigrants, lived above her father's hardware store in Corona, a section of Queens in New York City. She started her enterprise by selling skin creams concocted by her uncle, a chemist, in beauty shops, beach clubs and resorts. No doubt the potions were good. Estée Lauder was a quality fanatic, but the saleslady was better, much better, and she simply outworked everyone else in the cosmetics industry.
The ocean floor is home to many unique communities of plants and animals. Most of these marine ecosystems are near the water surface, such as the Great Barrier Reef, a 2,000 km long coral formation off the northeastern coast of Australia. Coral reefs, like nearly all complex living communities, depend on solar energy for growth, photosynthesis. The sun's energy, however, penetrates at most only about 300 meters below the surface of the water. The relatively shallow penetration of solar energy and the sinking of cold, subpolar water combine to make most of the deep ocean floor a frigid environment with few life forms. In 1977, scientists discovered hot springs at a depth of 2.5 kilometers on the Galapagos Rift spreading ridge off the coast of Ecuador. This exciting discovery was not really a surprise. Since the early 1970s, scientists had predicted that hot springs, geothermal vents, should be found at the active spreading centers along the mid-oceanic ridges, where magma, at temperatures over 1000 degrees Celsius, presumably was being erupted to form new oceanic crust. More exciting, because it was totally unexpected, was the discovery of abundant and unusual sea life, giant tube worms, huge clams, and mussels, that thrived around the hot springs.
Online game offers insights into epidemics. August 21, 2007. The epidemic swept the world. Fortunately, it was only the World of Warcraft, a popular online role-playing game. But that got in the attention of real disease experts at Tufts and Rutgers universities. That's because the accidental outbreak that attacked the virtual characters offered a unique opportunity to study how social groups can help spread a disease. In late 2005, the epidemic hit the World of Warcraft, played by millions. It all started with an error. One creature was supposed to infect only a few virtual players with so-called corrupted blood. But some of the nastiest virtual inhabitants exploited a flaw and spread the disease to unsuspecting masses. The virtual quarantines game designers tried to impose didn't work, in part because the virtual people didn't follow them, and so entire virtual cities were virtually destroyed.
Conservationists have long debated whether the koala should go on the Australian National Threatened Species List. While the koala is clearly in trouble in some parts of the country, in Queensland, for example, high numbers are afflicted by disease. In other parts such as Victoria and South Australia, the problem is not that koala populations are falling, but that they have grown to the point where they are almost too numerous. For a species to be classed as vulnerable, its population must have decreased by more than 30% over the last 3 generations or 10 years. The problem is that when such a stipulation is applied to koalas, the Victorian boom offsets the Queensland bust, and the species stays off the list. This has repercussions because northern koalas are different to southern ones. They are smaller, for example, and they contain a genetic variation not represented in the south. For this reason, a split listing has been devised. Koalas from New South Wales, the ACT and Queensland are now officially vulnerable. Those from Victoria and South Australia are not considered threatened.
A recent study reveals that the ability to walk quickly in old age is an indicator of a long life. The report examined results from recent research. The participants in the research were tested on a regular basis over an extended period of time. The researchers focused on the relationship between walking speed in the post-65 age group and longevity. They concluded that there was a direct correlation between walking speed and lifespan. A key researcher gave the explanation that this link exists because walking involves the use of many bodily functions working in unison. The heart, lungs, skeletal system, joints, muscles, nerves and brain have to work together in order to ensure a consistent speed. Damage to any of these systems may mean a much slower walking speed, which could signal medical problems.
One of the questions we need to ask ourselves is, how much of the news is biased? Can we recognize bias? The fact is, despite the journalistic ideal of objectivity, every news story is influenced by the attitudes and background of its interviewers, writers, journalists, photographers and editors. That is not to say that all bias is deliberate, but it does exist. So how can we, as readers or viewers, determine bias? Well, in the case of newspapers, it manifests itself in a number of ways, such as what events are selected for inclusion or omission. The placement of the article, meaning its proximity to the front or back pages, is significant. The use of headlines, photographs and language are further examples.
Lyrebirds, a common bird in rainforest areas of Australia, have an incredible repertoire of sounds that they are able to mimic from their environment, including over 20 other bird calls as well as sophisticated mechanical sounds. They have been known to replicate the sounds of chainsaws and pneumatic drills. The male lyrebird sings a medley of mimicry to impress females, and the more detailed and varied his repertoire is, the more interesting it seems to potential mates. Like females of other bird species, female lyrebirds do not take place in the imitating, but simply judge the competing males' symphonies. Once learned, it seems a lyrebird rarely forgets a call, and the sounds are passed down through the generations. There are some lyrebirds in Victoria. Australia, that still recreate the sounds of axes, saws and old-fashioned cameras which have not been used in the area for years.
For Professor David Phoenix, the Dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology, the return of single honors chemistry is a master of credibility and pride. If you say you're a science faculty, you have to have all the core sciences, and this course will mean we attract a new supply of potential masters and Ph.D. students in chemistry, but he thinks that an attraction for students will be a teaching approach that differs significantly from his days as an undergraduate. This takes real-life issues as the starting point of lectures and modules, such as how drugs are made, or the science behind green issues. Out of this study, he says, students will be exposed to exactly the same core chemistry, unchanged over decades, but they will be doing it in a way that is more engaging and more likely to lead to more fundamental learning. It is an approach that symbolizes chemistry's recent success story, moving with the times, while holding fast to the subject's essential role as a building block of science and technological advance. While past research has found higher intelligence scores among breastfed babies, what is so significant about this study is the researchers were able to collect more complete information on breastfeeding duration and also followed for a longer period. And, by using a population-based birth cohort, the breastfeeding practices had no association with income level. Most of the evidence of higher intelligence test scores among breastfed babies comes from high-income countries, where middle-class and higher-class mothers are more likely to breastfeed their babies than lower-income mothers. Certainly in the United States, breastfeeding rates reflect this trend. The increased funding will go to nutrition programs including school breakfast and lunch and more. First Lady Michelle Obama issued a supportive statement upon receiving the news of the passage of the bill that could impact the Let's Move campaigns that aims to end childhood obesity within a generation. I congratulate Chairman Miller and the House Education and Labor Committee on the successful, bipartisan passage of a child nutrition reauthorization bill out of the committee today. This important legislation will combat hunger and provide millions of school children with access to healthier meals, a critical step in the battle against childhood obesity. In the statement, she urged the House and Senate for a further legislative action. The President looks forward to signing a final bill this year, so that we can make significant progress in improving the nutrition and health of children across our nation. Chemicals used to control weeds in crops such as corn and soybeans may sometimes run off farmland and enter surface water bodies such as lakes and streams. If a surface water body that is used as a drinking water supply receives excess amounts of these herbicides, then the municipal water treatment plant must filter them out in order for the water to be safe to drink. This added filtration process can be expensive. Farmers can help control excess herbicides in runoff by choosing chemicals that bind with soil more readily, are less toxic, or degrade more quickly. Additionally, selecting the best tillage practice can help minimize herbicide pollution.